What's up, y'all? You're listening to the Extra Point College Football Podcast. I'm your host, Jacob Carnes, joined as always by my co-host, Daniel Hammock. Daniel, we have made it. It is week 5, and we can waste no time because week 5 is the most loaded slate we've had so far in college football. And you can't sleep on any week, really. But week 5 really is loaded.
Yeah, this one, we were texting back and forth, and I can't believe how many games we have to watch this weekend. I mean, I'm going to have several screens up at every time window, every viewing window. So I didn't know how we narrowed it down to our 7 games we're picking this week, but I looked at these 7 games, and I'm excited about every single one of them. So that's not always the case.
So we're picking 7. We're going to talk TCU, Oklahoma, Ole Miss, Kentucky, Arkansas, Alabama, Baylor, Oklahoma State, Florida State, Wake Forest, Mississippi State, Texas A&M, and then Clemson and NC State. You can also pick these games with us with Run Your Pool. So go to our social media at the Extra Point Pod on Facebook or Instagram. You can also find it on Twitter at Jacob Carnes or at Daniel Hammock. Our link tree on there as well. You can click on that, join our pool, make these picks against us. Season winner is going to get to be a guest on the Extra Point. So you can pick these same 7 games, same point spreads that we do on Run Your Pool. Be sure to check that out there. But Daniel, before we get there, there's way too many games. I just pick one game that you're excited for this week. So what are 2 games that we're not picking that you're excited to watch?
2 games. So first one's going to be the Tiger Bowl, LSU versus Auburn. This could be for Harson's job. It also could just be a fun atmosphere. I am interested to see if LSU, my 10-2 LSU team, can uphold what my thoughts of them are, because both of them are 3-1. And if you're looking at this basically, you might be like, hey, these are similar teams. LSU just dominated Mississippi State last week and really put on the foot on the throat last week. So I like LSU in this game. They're going to Auburn, though, and that's the great equalizer. But Auburn also just lost, a couple weeks ago to Penn State big at home. So, I don't know how much it's going to matter. I don't know if these guys are going to quit or not, but that one's always fun because of the rivalry, of the closeness usually of the game. It's a 9-point spread. And the other one I'm interested, Jacob, Jeff Collins is out at Georgia Tech. I want to see what this team looks like. Do they have fight? Are they going to quit the rest of the year? Because they look like they had already quit before that, because they've had 4 punts blocked this year already. And the little miscues and stuff that have occurred, Brent Key is taking over. The offensive line coach is taking over as the interim head coach for the rest of the year. He is an alumnus of Georgia Tech. And I'm interested to see how this team plays for him. They do play Pittsburgh this week, so it is a big challenge. And Pitt's the type of team that does not go down lightly. This isn't me forecasting Georgia Tech but do they hang with Pitt? Do they fight them? Do they give them a good game? Because if Pitt just runs away with it, then you might kind of have your answer early that this team has quit on anybody and everybody and, fade them the rest of the year. But if they come out with some fight, you might be looking at the next head coach of Georgia Tech, because a legacy staying home, that might be the right call. We'll have to see the rest of the year.
I'm going to rip off several. I'm going to cheat here. Friday night special, Washington at UCLA. Both 4-0. UCLA a 3-point dog at home. Phenomenal. Friday night special. Michigan, Iowa. I don't think it's going to mean much, but that's happening. Big noon kickoff.
Do you know, Jacob, the last, 6 times that Iowa has had a top 10 team play in Iowa?
They're like 4-1.
Yeah, or 5-1. Yeah. They've only lost 1. So, I think Michigan rolls and beats them, but
you never know.
Yikes. Stay away.
Utah, Oregon State, the best game you can't watch, part 2. Shout out to Larry Scott and the Pac-12 Network. 2 p.m. Eastern on that one.
That's why the Big Ten's taking your teams, Pac-12.
Kansas, Iowa State. Phenomenal game. What do you think the spread is on that game? Do you know?
Kansas 3.5.
So I would say it's favored by 3 though. So
No,
close
Kansas
game.
needs to be favored. Oh, it's not basketball.
That's right. Hold on, there's 2 more. West Virginia, Texas. Great test for both teams. Lastly, Sunday special, UCF SMU. So there are so many good games you can watch this week, and we're going to talk about 7 more of them. Daniel, let's dive in with the noon window. TCU versus Oklahoma. TCU at home. Oklahoma coming in after their upset loss. TCU undefeated, 4-0. Oklahoma a 6.5-point favorite on the road. Where are you going in Dallas?
So TCU, yeah. Hey, it's important. Fort Worth, different than Dallas. They're the Twin Cities of Texas. No, TCU, they've played Oklahoma about as well as anybody outside of Kansas State in the past, 6 years. Obviously, new regime there. The Sonny Dykes era is up and running, alive and well. Oklahoma coming off of that loss to Kansas State, I really think that we're going to know a lot about this staff and the buy-in that they have with how they come out in this game. I like Oklahoma because it's a 6.5-point spread. I like Oklahoma to win and cover. So I like because it's less than a touchdown. I think that's right on the money, though. I think that they are a better team, but I don't think they're going to run away and hide. I could see them getting up by 2 scores and TCU keeping it close, maybe scoring late. But I'm going to go with Oklahoma covering. And Jacob, as we do these picks, if people can see at home, they can't. Here's our run your pool. I'm going to go down
there we go.
as we do it, and I'm actually making my selection.
There you go.
On the app as we do it. So if people, end up joining along with us, they'll be in the same pool with us. Submit your picks. It'll be great.
So your picks winner gets to be a guest on the Extra Point. We might do a picks episode at the end of the season for bowls or for the playoff and stuff like that. We might do an off-season pod. We'll see. But you'll get to be a guest.
It'll be something fun. Yeah.
It'll be something fun on the podcast. So maybe you can help us with what you want to talk about. And you'll be a guest here on the podcast. All right. So TCU, Oklahoma. Here's the thing, Daniel. Oklahoma actually played well in their loss last week. I think a lot of people just saw on the surface like Kansas State upsets Oklahoma again. Must have been terrible, whatever. They just got outplayed. They goes 41-34. This is a good game, and Oklahoma played extremely well. Like Dylan Gabriel, man, 26 of 39 for 330, 8.5 yards per attempt, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. He played phenomenal. It was the defense that let him down. So I think it's important that this is under a touchdown. I'm laying the points with Oklahoma. Here's the thing. TCU beat a good SMU team last week, but their explosive play rate allowed was terrible against SMU, who is the only good opponent they've faced so far on their schedule. Their explosive play rate that they did against SMU last week, the best defense they played, was terrible. They had 1 explosive play in the entire game. They allowed 14 explosive plays to SMU. And now you're going up against Oklahoma. Like, you allowed 14 explosive plays to SMU.
Right.
And then you beat them by a touchdown. That will not fly against Oklahoma. So if you do this against Oklahoma, you're going to pay for it. I love the 6.5. It's under a touchdown. I like Oklahoma to bounce back after a loss. I like Venables as a culture guy. Get the team's mindset right. I think Gabriel goes off for a big day against this TCU pass defense, and Oklahoma rolls. I'm with you. I don't think it's a blowout, but I think it's a high-scoring matchup.
Yeah.
And Oklahoma's offense looks really, really good in the win. So
Boomer Sooner.
Boomer Sooner. Lay the 6.5 points. Daniel, we talked before the show that I'm excited we're 4 games in because the data is starting to get relevant. And so my stat sheet's lighting up.
You're licking your chops, I can tell.
I am excited to talk some more data. All right. Ole Miss, Kentucky, noon window game. Ole Miss at home, 6.5-point favorites against top 10 Kentucky. They're top 10 in the AP, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're
so
7.
Top 10 Kentucky. Wow. 6.5-point favorites at home. Ole Miss is. Where are you going in Oxford?
Yeah, this is the kind of a clash of identities, and it's people maybe don't realize how different they are. Ole Miss is this quick paced and everything like this, but they actually run the ball really well. Typically, you think of Kentucky as a running team offensively, and they have used their receivers and Will Levis, Tavion Robinson. They've really gone, this deep pool of receivers and really relied on them. Their offensive line has been struggling. Obviously, this first couple of games are without Chris Rodriguez, so the running game really hasn't taken off for Kentucky, whereas vice versa, Ole Miss it has. This game, Jacob, is a great game from a optic standpoint where they're both ranked, but they're both non-rivals in the SEC. I love it. They're both they're both on the precipice of could they be a top 3 or 4 team in the SEC? Like where's the pecking order? Like, Georgia and Bama are 1 and 2, but who's after them? Is it Tennessee? Is it Ole Miss? Is it Kentucky? Is it Arkansas? We're going to get some traction on that this week. I like that they're not rivals. I like that one's from the East, one's from the West. As far as this game itself, it being at Ole Miss in Oxford, I think is important. I think that Ole Miss will kind of dictate some things, but it's tough for me with the Mark Stoops defense to count them out. I am going to lay the points with Ole Miss. So minus 6.5. So it's only a touchdown. I think that.
So real quick, I want to be fair. Did you know that Chris Rodriguez is back?
Yeah.
Okay,
no,
making sure.
I was saying,
making sure you had all the information.
Yeah. No, you're fine. So the offensive line is the struggle for me for Kentucky. That being said, Ole Miss doesn't necessarily have a great defense. So I think that it's like strength on strength, weakness on weakness. I think Kentucky's defense will give a good look to Ole Miss, but over the course of the game, I think that running game is just going to pound on Kentucky over the course of the game, and I like Ole Miss to win this one, I think by 10 points, but if all I've got to do is lay a touchdown, less than a touchdown, I'm going to take Ole Miss, but man, I'm nervous.
What happens when a terrible pass offense plays a terrible rush offense? Well, they're not playing offense on offense, but that's Kentucky and Ole Miss. So believe it or not, so far this year, Ole Miss's pass offense has been terrible. Like, they rank 108th in the country in EPA per play when passing the ball. Kentucky, again, believe it or not, their rush offense has been terrible. 123rd in the country EPA per play when rushing the ball. So, again, two things that I think you would identify with these teams, Ole Miss being, oh, yeah, it's a pass-heavy offense, spread, Lane Kiffin, Kentucky, run the ball down your throat. They've actually, the strength of this offense has been the opposite.
Exactly.
So what happens when these two teams meet? But you mentioned something important there. Ole Miss's rush defense, actually, top 30 in the country in EPA per rush allowed. So they have a top 30 rush defense. Kentucky's pass defense, 22nd in the country in EPA allowed per play. So this is a little strength on strength, weakness on weakness setting up, which is fun. I think a lot's going to be made about Chris Rodriguez being back. I was hoping I'd sway you with that pick. I think it's going to take him time to get up to speed. It's hard to go from nothing to hitting in the SEC, bottom line. Here's what I trust. Do I trust Jackson Dart or Will Levis? I don't know. But I do trust Lane Kiffin to get his passing offense figured out before I trust Mark Stoops to get his rushing offense figured out. Because I'm with you on, I don't think Kentucky's offensive line is very good. And so I'm going to trust the better play caller. And honestly, who I think is the better quarterback in Jackson Dart. And I'm going to lay the points with Ole Miss. I do think this is about a touchdown game. Again, I love that it's 6.5. Thank goodness. And lay the points. Ole Miss wins this by a touchdown in Oxford.
How fun is it, though? Like, we really don't know what these teams are. Like, this is the aptitude test. Like, it helps us to, like,
this whole week is who's good. It's the who's good week.
We finally get to know, and this is one of those, hey, we'll know. We'll know after this week.
We will know.
And your 4 weeks of data will be 5 weeks of data after this, and we'll know even more from these kind of matchups where it's like, hey, we've got a beat on both of them because they both have beaten these other teams. But between them, how we square this? We're about to.
Love it. All right, let's stay in the SEC. Arkansas and Alabama.
Yes.
This game has a little bit less hype on it because of Arkansas's loss to Texas A&M last week. But I guarantee you, Reynolds Razorback Stadium is going to be packed out with fans, sold out crowd wanting to beat Alabama, because that's what happens when you play Alabama. Everyone shows up and sells out the stadium because they want to beat you really bad. So Arkansas, Alabama coming in as a 16.5-point favorite. Where are you going in Little Rock? Fayetteville.
Yeah, Little Rock, they play there once a year, but not this game. They want to have as many seats as possible for this game.
Right.
Well, I didn't even realize. So this one, okay. Oh, the favorite is on the left side and the underdog's on the right side. I see. Sorry, I was looking at our little pick sheet, so I was thinking home and away. So Ole Miss is at home, though.
Ole Miss is at home and Arkansas is at home. Yep.
Okay. So Arkansas is at home, getting points. Home team getting points. Love it. Would love to just take it. But goodness, can I get a 17 in the hook instead of a 16 in the hook? That's rough, because part of me, I'm looking at this, Jacob. Alabama asserted itself last week. It was Vanderbilt, but they asserted themselves. They, the receiver position, Ja'Cory Brooks, Jermaine Burton, they started to pop off, look a little bit better. Running game was there. Offensive line did what they needed to. Again, it's Vanderbilt. It's tough to tell. Alabama has had a very high pressure rate or the offensive line has given up a lot of pressures to, on Bryce Young. So in obvious passing downs, I think that's an issue. And Arkansas is one of the best sack teams in the SEC. So that front seven, specifically defensive line, but you get some outside linebackers. You got Drew Sanders going against his former team. I mean, I look for them to get some sacks in this game. Do I think that Arkansas can win outright? I do. Does that mean I should probably take them with the points? It probably does. But I would not be able to sleep at night if I didn't take – this is a low points total for Alabama. Something about it. I just think that Alabama's going to come in here, business trip. I've seen it before. And they're just going to head down and run through whoever. Arkansas doesn't have the best passing defense, and I think that that's going to cost them a little bit. On the flip side, I think that they can keep it close by running the ball and kind of neutralizing Will Anderson and Dallas Turner. They're going to run the ball with, obviously KJ Jefferson, Rocket Sanders, do that kind of thing. I think that he's going to be pretty efficient. I think they're going to score points. I just think that over the course of the game, I'm looking at like a 42-21 type of game. And if that's how I see it going, that's 21 points. So let me lay the points, and I'm going to take Alabama.
It's always a smart play to just take Alabama against the spread, right? You'd rather be wrong betting on Bama than not. Daniel, what if I told you, though, if they were to win the game 42-21, it would be the first time in their last 5 road games the second time they've covered in their last 6 road games. And then it would be the only road game out of 6, including this one, that it was more than one possession. Alabama in their last 5 road games, they're 4-1 overall, 1 loss to Texas A&M. They're 1-4 against the spread. Florida last year, 31-29. Texas A&M last year, they lost 41-38. Mississippi State, they won 49-9. Auburn, quadruple overtime, 24-22. Texas, 2 weeks ago, 20-19. Even with the blowout included, that brings Alabama's margin of victory with this team, because only last year is this team. This team has just matured from last year. Margin of victory to 8.6 points per game, even with that blowout included in their last 5 true road games. 1-4 against the spread. Arkansas kept this game to a touchdown last year. Arkansas had a 67% post-game win expectancy against Texas A&M. That game was lost on a freak 99-yard fumble, turnaround, hand it off to your teammate. No one's ever practiced that. Like, freak play they lost to Texas A&M on. This has Kansas State, Oklahoma written all over it to me. And so now I don't think Arkansas wins, but I do think 16.5 is too much. I think at most is a 2-touchdown game. So I can see Alabama win this game 42-28 even, but I think 16.5 is too much. Alabama has shown their last 5 road trips that they are okay just winning on the road. This isn't the Bama teams of a couple of years ago that would just go in and win by 40 on the road. I think this team's different. So I'm taking Arkansas on the points at home. I'd love to see an upset. I mean, I'm rooting for upsets everywhere, Daniel. So I'd love to see. We've had plenty of them this year. It's fun. So I'm taking Arkansas, taking the points. All right, let's move over to the Big 12. Baylor and Oklahoma State. Again, it's who's good week. Who's good? Baylor, Oklahoma State. Baylor 2.5-point favorite at home. Where are you going to Waco?
Yeah, I think this one's like who deserves to be the top 10 team for the Big 12 that everybody's just going to keep ranking in the top 10. So whoever wins this one will keep the pole position for the rest of for until they lose. But yeah, this one I'm just gonna go. I think Baylor's the better team. Like they're the more complete team. I just like their trajectory of Dave Aranda as a coach. And so I just think that they're going to win. They're at home. It's less than a field goal that I have to lay. So I feel more comfortable with Baylor. And this pick is for Chip and Joanna Gaines. So give me Baylor, lay the 2.5.
I'm just going to reemphasize all the points I made in the offseason because they're all still true. Do not let Oklahoma State playing a bunch of nobody teams fool you. All right. Oklahoma State ranked 128th in returning production for their defense coming into the season. This team last year that went to the Big 12 championship was carried by that defense. That same defense also lost their defensive coordinator, who we have seen make an immediate impact at Ohio State. That defense is night and day different. So not only do you lose your defensive coordinator, you lost everybody off that defense that carried your team. And do not tell me what Spencer Sanders did against Central Michigan and Arizona State and the directional school they played last week and be like, no, this Spencer Sanders is different. He's not. Don't buy it. Don't fall for it. Lay the points, 2.5. Blake Shapen is going to light up this pass defense. They get up 44 to Central Michigan. Like, do we forget they get up 44 to? This is not a top 10 team. Why are they ranking the top 10? Yeah. Fade Oklahoma State. Automatic play for me. Lay the points. Baylor. Moving on. All right. Florida State, Wake Forest. Not two undefeated teams. 2 ranked teams. Wake Forest played a very tough game against Clemson. Florida State. 6.5-point favorites at home. Where are you going to Tallahassee?
Yeah, that's got some eyes popping after last week. That tells me. So, does Vegas only think that Clemson is a 1-point favorite over Florida State? Because Clemson was a 7.5-point favorite last week over Wake Forest, and that was a phenomenal game. I think Sam Hartman's going to come into this game and have supreme confidence, especially after what he just did to a very good defense in Clemson. I think that Florida State can win this game. Of course, they're favored. They're at home. I think Florida State wins this game, but I don't think that they win by a touchdown. I think that they're going to have to scratch and claw for every point. And I'm taking Wake in the points because I like Sam Hartman and their ability to put the ball in the end zone. So even if they're giving up points to Florida State, I think they're going to be scoring enough where those extra points, those 6.5, that's going to be too much for Florida State to run away and hide. And I don't think Florida State's quite at that place to really put the claws down and stop Wake Forest. So give me Wake, give me the 6.5 points in Doak Campbell.
Daniel, I texted you earlier, said I have a special gameplay, little nickname for it. You're forgetting the most important player in this game. Do you know his name? 3 letters. Ian. This is a hurricane game, my friend. This is the Hurricane Ian plus the points special. So Hurricane Ian plus the points, Wake Forest. That's it. Take the points. Hurricane game.
Hurricane game.
So they're not going to get like brunt of the hurricane, but
They're not
there's
going
going
to
to be
lose
wind and
to Middle
rain.
Tennessee State or anything, right?
Right.
Like
Yeah.
Hurricanes. Okay.
Yikes. I did see someone put on Twitter. It was really funny. They said for those evacuating Florida, have a great place for you to stay. It was like a map to Middle Tennessee State.
To Murfreesboro.
It was like they do a great job of taking care of hurricanes or something like that. And I was like, that was really good. All right, Mississippi State, Texas A&M. Texas A&M coming off of a big win of Arkansas. Obviously, they're the ranked team. They'll be favored, except they're 3.5-point dogs at Mississippi State. So, where are you going to Starkville?
Yeah, this one stinks on both sides. I don't know, because obviously Mississippi State coming off the loss where they got dominated by LSU, specifically in the second half. But if I'm going to bet, let me bet on the quarterback with the receivers, with the coach who knows how to be explosive. Give me Mike Leach. Give me Will Rogers, and give me these receivers. They're laying 3.5. I even have to lay a hook, Jacob. A hook. But this goes in straight to my principle of fading Texas A&M the rest of the year. I'll always do it. So this is like me not taking New Orleans Saints players on my fantasy team. Okay, I'm fading Texas A&M the rest of the year. So if you put a game on here, it's happening. But Mississippi State, okay, cue Greg McElroy, Klanga. All right, they're at home. Okay, they're going to be ringing those bells. It's going to be obnoxious and ridiculous. It's going to be Start Vegas. And Will Rogers, I'm just the maturation of him over these years, the more seasoning he gets. And I mean, I think that they've got enough where they can tire out the Texas A&M defense by, the death by 1,000 cuts. If they're going to, bracket them and make them play short, they'll do that and they'll be just fine, because Mississippi State has a good enough defense. And hear me when I say good enough to stop Texas A&M's offense. It's not a great defense, but it's good enough to stop Texas A&M's offense. So, I've said enough. Mississippi State, Klanga.
I'm going to join you on the fade Texas A&M train. Absolutely, yes. We're fading Texas
we should get
A&M.
Shirts.
They beat a horrible Miami team. They beat Arkansas. We talked about it on a crazy
mediocre handoff. Miami team. Okay, let's not say horrible.
Middle Tennessee State, my friend. Middle Tennessee State. They just lost their best offensive playmaker for the season, which you hate to see, but that's important.
Hey, Jake Garcia is going to start for Miami now. So, anyways,
that was never the problem. That poor Tyler Van Dyke needs to get out of Miami quick. We'll talk about Miami another time.
Yeah. We're not here right now.
Texas A&M has survived on their run game. The Mississippi State defensive line and front seven can stand up to the run offense. And I'm with you. Will Rogers, the longer you're in Mike Leach's offense, the better you are. He's been great. Simply put, Mississippi State is the better team. They should be favored, and they should win this game by a touchdown. So Mississippi State at home, lay the points. It's a touchdown game, so 3.5. Sure, easy, lay it. All right, lastly, Saturday night, ABC, game day's going there. You got Kirk and Chris Fowler on the call. Clemson, 6.5-point favorites against NC State. NC State, can they go back-to-back, beat Clemson? Where are you going in Death Valley?
I think there's a lot of pressure on NC State to be the team that can do this. They have been in the top 10 this year. They have kind of had that target because of, obviously returning starting quarterback, you're returning some players, some guys. People have kind of not really paid a whole lot of attention. That ECU game where they barely escaped, they've kind of just piddled around. I think Clemson coming off of last week, even though it was only a 6-point win in double overtime against Wake Forest, I think it was the kind of win that they needed because they've been heavily relying on their defense, as they should, because they've got a great defense. Last week, they had to rely on their offense. They had to rely on their quarterback. And yes, it was against Wake's defense, but I think that DJ got the confidence he needs on the offensive side of the ball to be able to, he was 5 touchdowns he threw. Will Shipley had over 100 yards rushing. He looked explosive. I think it had a feeling of completeness on offense. The box score looks really good, but the team was explosive and played well. That's the important part. And I think that kind of momentum, you feel that it's palpable. I think Clemson's going to come in and win this game. I think they're going to run away with it. I think it's going to be a potential blowout, like 21 points. But I only have to lay 6.5, so that's all I'm going to lay. So give me Clemson. I'm going to lay the 6.5. They win by at least a touchdown. I'm saying maybe even upwards of 3 scores.
So when I looked at this slate, my first, again, like we picked the games we're going to pick. Then I'm just like looking at the first spreads that come out, just glancing at them. I kind of go like, okay, I'm going here, I'm going here, I'm going here. Just like in my head, making picks. Like off the top of my head, what do I think? Before diving into it, what do I think? And legit, I picked 7 favorites. And I was like, man, this is the week of the favorites. Like Clemson looked pretty easy. But Daniel, this is a special Saturday. It's week 5. We talked about it. It's an insane week. The amount of good games on is ridiculous this week. But we're going to hit the ×2 button on the Hurricane Ian plus the points special. That hurricane, I'm a weather nerd. I don't know if you knew that about me, but is going to cross over Florida, go back on the Atlantic, and then hit South Carolina. This storm is huge. They're going to get 6 inches of rain, 15 to 18 mile an hour winds, which is going to slow this game down. And honestly, I was impressed. If it wasn't a hurricane game, I'm laying these points easy, because DJ really impressed me. He looked like that Notre Dame game DJ last week. The pass offense looked explosive last week, and they needed it to beat Wake because the defense broke down a little bit. And that showed me Clemson's defense is vulnerable. I think this plays in NC State's favor in this game. And again, this is just a principle here. It's a hurricane game. Hurricane Ian plus the points. So NC State plus 6.5. I think Clemson wins. I think they're the better team, but I will take Hurricane Ian plus the points ×2. So we have 2 Hurricane Ian specials this week.
And we're on opposite sides on both, aren't we?
We are.
No.
You pick Wake.
We're both on Wake. Yeah.
So love it. All right. Be sure you can make all these picks on Run Your Pool. You can find the link to that in the show notes, actually. And then you can also find it on our social media at the Extra Point Pod on Instagram and Facebook. And you can find it on Daniel's Twitter and my Twitter. And you can follow him on Twitter at Deep South Daniel. You can follow me on Twitter at Jacob Carnes with a K. And that will do it for this edition of the Extra Point. He's Daniel. I'm Jacob. See you.